Slovakia Chronicles, a podcast of information, news and much more of our beloved Slovakia. By Andrea Paolo Mazzucchetti. It's me! Let's start. Hello everyone, welcome to the 22nd episode of the Slovakia Chronicles Podcast. Here we go again. Another week passed, but the situation is still unclear, as the previous period. But well, we are not alone in Slovakia. The chaos reigns in all the world. There is only one goal for everybody, saving the winter holidays, and consequently, the economy. According to the latest data, the number of positive people to COVID is slowly growing in the last days, even if more citizens have been tested. Anyhow, the trend seems to highlight a decrease of the spread of the virus, and this is a good news for all of us. Regarding testing, a 4th round of antigen tests took place in Slovakia over the previous weekend. The test, on purely voluntary basis, showed 2,501 positive cases. This is an average positive factor of 2.26%, much higher than 1% set by the government. Compared to the first 3 rounds of the test at national level, in the 3 previous weekends there was a slight increase in positivity. The sample of inhabitants who present themselves for testing in these municipalities represent about 30% of the people who participate in the first national round. Meanwhile, the Health Minister Marek Krajci confirmed that the vaccine should arrive in Slovakia in the second half of December. There are 3,000 doses, useful for vaccinating 150,000 people, and the immunization will not be mandatory. For this reason, an informative campaign will be carried out to illustrate the population the advantages of this vaccine and the fact that it will be a safe product. In the first instance, the vaccine will be available to health professionals and authorities who help manage the pandemic, such as police officers, firefighters, and people who ensure strategic activities for the functioning of the state. Only then it will be the turn for the rest of the population. Talking about the next steps to stop the pandemic, the Prime Minister Igor Matovic changed his mind, at least for now. In fact, after a previous statement about the 3 more possible rounds of nationwide rapid swaps to be made in December, the crisis management team highlighted the fact that so far it's not been possible to procure the million of rapid tests needed for the weekend of 6 December. In these days, however, the number of mobile centers will be increased to carry out rapid examination in the area, including by making use of ambulances. By the way, several companies have expressed their interest in testing their staff and family members. To reduce the spread of the virus, also the border controls are changing again their method of check and obligation for people entering the territory of Slovak Republic. These are the new measures, valid from the 7 o'clock in the morning on 26 November 2020. Ireland and Singapore will be added to the list of low-risk countries, while Greece will be eliminated, entering the list of the red countries, for which a PCR test not older than 72 hours is required if arriving from another red EU country or you have visited one in the last 14 days. Alternatively, you can register via corona.gov.sk and quarantine pending a test to be done in Slovakia at least 5 days later. The exemption from mandatory isolation, subject to the submission of negative PCR test, will apply not only to European Union countries, but also to European Economic Area countries, Great Britain, Norway, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and also Switzerland. Children under the age of 7 years will be not tested on arrival from abroad, but the test can be requested from a regional public health office or from a doctor. Exemption from isolation and testing will be also granted to EU, EEA, and Swiss citizens who have permanent or temporary residence in Slovakia, if they are recovered from COVID-19 in the past 3 months. Persons with permanent or temporary residence in Slovakia who entered or leave Slovakia for examination or treatment, as well as their relatives, will no longer have to apply for an exemption for the Ministry of Health if their stays does not exceed 12 hours. However, they must present an invitation from the medical facility or a subsequent medical certificate. There are some exemptions for those in transit and for regular crossing border commuters who do not need a test but must show a document from their employers. The fight against coronavirus in Slovakia should also be favored by a smartphone application, which will let to send reports if the owner has met a positive person. The app, which at the moment has been called e-Rusko, should not collect personal data, but only sends reports on the potential contagion of the phone owner. It will be the crisis management committee to decide on its launch and to establish how to use it and from when the novelty should be used. For example, doctors will have to establish the distance and duration of contact to consider the risk of infection, but also what will happen to the recipient of the message after receipt the notification by the application of the encounter with an infected person. Everything should take place without the exchange of personal data and the anonymization of the message. A similar app, e-Ruska, is already in use in Czech Republic. In the past, the government had launched a quarantine app, e-Quarantena, which however was short-lived and was downloaded by only 9,500 users. But in all this uncertainty and stable situation related to the COVID, there is finally a good news for all the Slovak society. In fact, Slovakia joined the campaign to fight violence against women. In fact, 1 in 5 women in Slovakia has experienced violence from their former or current partner. 7% of women have been physically attacked, while 3% have been attacked sexually by their partners. Low awareness of violence makes women more vulnerable or prevent them from getting the help they need. In fact, only 15% of the women turn to the police, and 13% sought psychological help. The president, Zuzana Kaputova, has also supported the fight to end the violence against women. Violence against women has no place in Slovak society, stressed by the representatives of the government, claiming that violence against women is a serious persisting problem of the entire society. There is still a lot to do, like using the Istanbul Convention, but there are fortunately some organizations helping women facing violence. These problems escalate particularly in the crisis situation, and women's rights have been violated in both the first and the second pandemic waves in relation to obstetric care. So we need to be careful not only to the virus, but also to all the toxic behaviors that we experience directly or indirectly that lead to physical or psychological abuse or violence, especially against women. I will always support initiatives like the International Days for the Elimination of Violence against Women, because the only way to evolve as society is to spread knowledge and awareness about the problem that exists in reality. It is valid for the violent and close-minded people, as well for the COVID negationists. Well, we'll manage together. Again. Thank you for being part of the Slovakia Chronicles family, and stay safe. working? Okay. The fight against coronavirus in Slovakia should also be favored by the smartphone application, which will have to send reports if the owner has met a positive person. The app, which at the moment has been called Rusko, should not collect personal data, but only send reports on the potential contagion of the phone owner. It will be the crisis management committee, the body that decide on measures to combat the coronavirus. It will be the crisis management committee to decide on its launch and to establish how to use it and from when the novelty should be used. For example, epidemiologists, doctors will have to establish the distance and duration of contact to consider the risk of the infection, but also what will happen to the recipient of the message after receipt of the notification by the application of the encounter with the infected person. Everything should take place without the exchange of personal data and the anonymization of the message. A similar app, Ruska, is also used in Czech Republic. In the past, the government had launched a quarantine app, eQuarantena, which, however, was short-lived and was downloaded by just 9,500 users. But in all this uncertainty and stable situation related to the COVID, there is finally a good news for the Slovak society. In fact, Slovakia joined the campaign to fight violence against women. In fact, one in 5 women in Slovakia has experienced violence from their former or current partner. 7% of the women have been physically attacked, while 3% have been attacked sexually by their partner. In most cases, the attacks occurred on a regular basis. Low awareness of violence makes women more vulnerable or prevents them to getting the help they need. In fact, only 15% of the women turned to the police and 13% sought physiological help. The President Zuzana Kaputova has also supported the fight to end violence against women. The current situation is far from satisfactory. She thanked everybody who helped women leave their attackers. Violence against women has no place in Slovakia society, stressed by some representative from the government, claiming that violence against women is a serious persisting problem of the entire society. There is still a lot to do, like using the Istanbul Convention, but there are fortunately some organizations helping women facing violence. This problem escalates particularly in crisis situations, and women's rights have been violated in both the first and the second pandemic waves in relation to obstetric care. So we need to be careful not only to the virus, but also to all the toxic behavior that we experience directly or indirectly. So we need to be careful not only to the virus, but also to all the toxic behavior that we experience directly or indirectly. So we need to be careful not only to the virus, but also to all the toxic behaviors that we experience directly or indirectly, that lead to physical or psychological abuse or violence, or violence, especially against women. I will always support initiatives that I will always support initiatives like the International Days. I will always support initiatives like the International Days for the Elimination of Violence against Women, because the only way to evolve as society is to spread knowledge and awareness about the problems that exist in reality. It is valid for the violent and close-minded people, as well for the COVID negationists. We will manage together. Again. Thank you for being part of the Slovakia Chronicle family, and stay safe.